Hi, welcome to my podcast, Miracles by Divine Design. This is Jenny Harris. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share this particular miracle with you today. This is a miracle where I was able to be a vessel for the Lord to help somebody else. 8 years ago, my kids and I went fishing and camping for spring break. And one of the days that we were there, we had run out of fishing line, and so we went to go find some, and we stopped at several stores, and they were all out of fishing line, probably because it was spring break. So the last store that we had stopped at, we asked the cashier who else might have fishing line, and she told us that she thought we could find fishing line at IGA if we went into a town called Tonto Basin. And so the kids and I drove there. And as we were driving there, I went to pull into the first entrance, and the spirit told me not to pull in there, but to go into the second entrance. So I didn't understand why, but I went ahead and listened, and I went into the second entrance. And I parked the truck, and we were getting the kids all unloaded, and I could see this car that was the way the parking lot was at that particular grocery store. There was a downhill slope from the store down. And so there was this car that had been parked up on the top of the slope closest to the grocery store, and I could see it coming in reverse, but just something wasn't looking right. I didn't know what, but it just seemed out of place. And then all of a sudden, the kids and I heard somebody screaming for help. And so I was trying to figure out what was going on. So I ran over and to the other side of this car where I could see the other side of the car that was coming down in reverse. And I saw this elderly woman who was her driver's side door was open, and she was hanging on with her right hand to her steering wheel and with her left hand to the inside of the driver's door, and was being dragged backwards while her car was going in reverse. And so, of course, myself and my son Tragan and his best friend Anthony, we all went running, and I tried to push the car from behind to see if I could get it to stop, but I couldn't because it was coming down the hill. And so I ran over to the driver's side and told the boys to run go to the passenger side to get to the car to put it in park because we couldn't reach over her to put the car in park. And so as I got to where she was, I could see that the tire was skidding, the front driver's side tire was skidding on her leg. And so I grabbed her from underneath both of her arms and just pulled as hard as I could and jumped backwards and off to the side with her. And she landed on top of me. And my son Tragan had gone into the passenger side and thrown her car into park just in time before her and I both got drug down the hill farther from the driver's door pulling us. And so as you can imagine, we were all just, the adrenaline was pumping, and we were so grateful that she was okay, that the tire had pulled her under so that it had gone from her foot up to her knee and popped. And then when I grabbed her and jumped off to the side, the tire popped over her right leg and was able to free her from being pulled under the tire, which just would have went straight up her body. And this woman was a tiny, petite woman. She was very, very small. She was 83 years old, and it would have killed her had that tire gone continued going up over her. It would have killed her. And so um, as we were sitting there and kind of getting our wits about us, I was helping her sit up, trying to get her leaned up against the car a little bit so we could assess her injuries. And when she pushed herself back on the ground to sit up a little bit, her leg literally split in half the long way. So from her ankle to the inside of her knee, her whole calf had been um, severed, basically, not all the way through, but the top half. So her leg literally fell in half. And if anybody knows me, they know that I do not handle blood well. I do not handle injuries well. I do not handle anything like that well. And I had to fully and completely rely on the Lord to help me help her. And so, meanwhile, she had this little dog with her that had jumped out of the car. So I told the boys, to catch her dog, and so they were trying to catch her dog, and I just you can tell that the Lord and his angels kicked in because I went into full medic mode, and I was able to keep my wits about me to help her. And I remember there was a lot of people there because of being spring break, and a lot of people were getting gas, and her car, we got it stopped before it hit the gas pump because the gas pumps were behind her. So we were down by the gas pumps, and there was a lot of people there, and I was yelling like, somebody call 911, somebody call 911, and nobody was doing it. They all just kind of were staring at her leg. And so I remembered some training from, decades ago. And I pointed at a man and I said, "You call 911." And he kind of shook his head and then, like, kind of like snapping out of it. And he called 911. And then I started telling other people, I need blankets, I need anything that you have, like, please go get me something. And then one lady ran to her ranger and grabbed me a fleece blanket. And so I had to literally pull the one side of the lady who I helped. Her name was Bobby. Um, I didn't know her at the time, but her name is Bobby. I had to pull one side of her leg back over to meet it up where the shin was, and the bone there by her shin, and then just seal it up the best I could. And I remember that I was looking at my son's best friend. He's like an adopted son to us. He went everywhere with us. His name was Anthony, and I was yelling at him to go inside and get me some plastic gloves or some plastic grocery bags that I could use for gloves. And he just was standing there paralyzed and wasn't hearing me. And so I just knew I had to work fast to help her. So I grabbed her leg and put it back together. And then this lady came back with the fleece blanket, and I used the fleece blanket to wrap her leg as tight as I could. And then I looked down at her foot and realized that there was no skin on the top of her foot at all. I could just see the inside of her foot. And I I in any other situation I would have literally passed out, but I felt God and his angels there with me. And so I yelled to somebody else to go get me a towel or something. And another man ran back to his boat and he grabbed me a towel. And so I wrapped her foot up with the towel as tight as I could. And then another lady came running back. She had ran into the grocery store and just grabbed a whole thing of paper towels. And I was able to use the paper towels to wrap up her other foot that was also bleeding from being dragged across the asphalt because she was wearing sandals. And Tragan, meanwhile, had caught her dog and given her dog to Anthony. And then he came and held her leg with me until the ambulance got there. And Tricity took her journey and the dog, and just my daughter Tricity was helping take care of our youngest and take care of the dog. And we all just did what we could to help until the ambulance got there. And then when the paramedic came, he knelt down beside us and started opening these little gauze squares, like one at a time. And I told him, that is not even going to cover a little bit of this wound. And he just continued to open his little packs of gauze, and I was just sitting there thinking, oh boy, okay. And so he unwrapped a blanket from her leg, and as soon as he saw it, he said a few swear words and immediately wrapped her leg back up and dispatched a helicopter. And then he ran to the ambulance and went and got a huge bolt of gauze and came back and unwrapped her leg and got wrapped it with the gauze, and then he unwrapped her feet and wrapped them with the gauze as well. And when all her major wounds were all wrapped up, I started by the paramedic. I just started, my world started spinning, and I was just like, oh my goodness, what just happened? And there was a lot of things with the story. She was in complete shock, and she just kept talking about um, how the beer in her car was going to get warm. And so how her brother-in-law was not going to be happy about that. And she just kept talking to me about all these things. And at one point she was saying, I have got to call my sister because my sister is gonna want to see this, and so I was trying to help navigate that as well. And finally, someone brought her phone. One of the other people who was standing by brought her phone so she could call her sister. And I just remember I was so focused on helping her with her leg, I didn't hear much of what she said on the phone. And then all of a sudden I heard her say, well, that wasn't my sister at all. I don't know who that was, after she had explained, what had happened. And so I had another person who was standing by come get her phone and find her sister's phone number, and so she could call her sister and um, tell her sister what was going on. And um, all of this, was happening, and I was able to navigate all of it and help in this way that was not anything I could have ever done of myself, um, uh, ever. And so it was so amazing to me that the Lord just used me as this vessel, even though my vessel, my flesh, was not capable of that. I do have a relationship with the Lord, and He is able to use my flesh in a way to help people that I couldn't do alone and on my own. And this the the helicopter was coming, and they were loading her up in the ambulance to take her to where the helicopter could land. And I remember they asked her, have you ever been in a helicopter? And she said, no. And they said, mind you, she was in total shock. And they said, well, you're going on a helicopter ride today. And she said, oh, yippee, I've always wanted to go in a helicopter. And so they they took her by the ambulance, and then the police were there, and I had to do police reports. And then as I was doing the police report, my whole body started shaking uncontrollably, and I threw up, and my world was spinning. And I just remember that I went to my truck, barely could get there, and I got my phone and I called my mom because my mom does very well with the medical world. And I called my mom, and I was just bawling, and my mom walked me through it and helped me to calm down and helped me to stop shaking so bad, and was able to bring me back to a place where I could function again. And anyways, so later that night, we get these messages and we find out that this lady Bobby, who I had never met, was actually my fourth cousin and was close friends with my Mema, so my mom's mom. They were second cousins, and they were really close friends, and they talked to each other all the time. And I had no idea that this woman was my relative and someone so special to other people in my family. And it was just such a beautiful thing when I realized that the Lord used me in this way to help my family. And ugh, sorry, it makes me emotional to think about it. But Bobby did have to have a lot of surgery. She had to spend a lot of time in the hospital, and she did have to have several of her toes amputated. And it was a very long, grueling process for her to um, get her leg put back together. And I talked to her on the phone multiple times, and she had the most beautiful testimony and the most beautiful faith and the most optimistic outlook on her situation. And every time I talked to her, she told me thank you, that she was still alive. And all glory be to God, because we all know that wasn't me. But um she did pass away in August. Um, and I was so sad to hear that she had passed away, but I did get to visit her one time after this incident happened in person, and then we talked on the phone multiple times. But she was just this lovely, lovely human being, and I was so grateful that the Lord kept her here for longer because she was such a blessing to so many people. And I just love when the Lord allows me to be able to see how He works these miracles, and how He can use the smallest prompting to create the biggest miracles. And I try to always listen to those promptings. I'm not 100% at doing it, but I know that they're important. And sometimes we see why we were prompted to do something, like don't turn into this entrance, go to the next. And sometimes we don't get to see why we had a prompting to do something. But either way, when we heed the voice of the Lord and those promptings of the Spirit, the Lord gives us more opportunities to help and serve and love, and He knows that we'll listen and He can trust us, so He will use us more and more. And I was so grateful to be the vessel for Bobby in this situation. And I'm going to read this passage of scripture a lot on my podcast, but it's Proverbs 3 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. And I just want to share to you my own faith in these verses, that if we don't trust in our own understanding and we trust the Lord, He can use us in beautiful ways. And I hope you have a really blessed day. And if nobody's told you yet today, you are so loved. And I, for one, am glad that you're here on this earth. So let your light shine. It's uniquely yours. Nobody else has a light like yours. Talk to you later. Bye bye.